In this video, we'll go over problems that may occur with your dropper post that cause it not to go up
or down. We'll be breaking these down by symptom, going over the potential causes, and then talking about the recommended repairs. One note, if your post is activated by a hydraulic lever, some of these solutions may not work for you.
In those cases, contact the manufacturer. Stick with us as we try and solve your dropper drama. One symptom you can run into is the dropper simply doesn't drop. If it's a wireless system, that can sometimes be a dead battery. This model has a battery indicator light, and pushing it tells us, well, that might be the issue. However, if you have a cable system, commonly that means something is loose. Let's look inside a typical system and see how they work. At the bar, there will be some sort of remote or lever. When working correctly, we push the lever and it pulls the cable, which moves the lever under the dropper, which pushes on an actuator. And this allows the saddle to move down or then pop back up. Let's check this bike. Push the lever and nothing is dropping. When we push the lever, we can actually feel nothing's really happening this first bit. That's called deadband, or simply lever motion that does nothing. There's excessive slack in this system. So much excessive, the end cap can be pulled back and forth, largely out of the barrel adjuster. All this excessive slack is preventing the actuator from being moved under the dropper. Your dropper lever is likely going to have a barrel adjuster. This can be turned counterclockwise to bring out the barrel to take up the slack to help us move that actuator. After adjusting, give it a test. We push, it's moving on down. Push again, it's moving on up. Keep in mind, barrel adjusters have a limited amount of movement and cable slack they can take up. If you run out of barrel adjuster, you're going to have to take the slack up at the cable pinch bolt. Cable pinch bolts can be located either at the shift lever with the cable head underneath the post, or it could be the cable pinch bolt is under the post with the cable head at the shift lever. If at the lever, start by turning your barrel adjuster fully back into the lever, turning it clockwise. Loosen the cable pinch bolt. Pull out some slack and re-secure. Test the dropper and adjust as needed at the barrel adjuster. If your pinch bolt is at the post, you will most likely need to remove the post in order to adjust the cable, unless you have an externally routed cable design. To remove the post, begin by loosening the seat post collar. Before drawing up the post, understand that we want the housing to stay engaged. It's going to have to follow the post as it comes up. To do that, you're going to need to rotate the bars, especially on internally routed housing. So as it's pushed in, you can draw it out at the bottom. It can also help, in some cases, to even remove the shift lever from the bar. That can give us even more slack. Now as we draw the post up, we push from below and it feeds up and eventually out. We can now disengage the binder clamp. Once the post is removed, we can work on changing the cable slack at the cable pinch bolt. We need to shorten the distance here. When that's fully up, this is now too tall for our cable slack. The exact distance here varies a bit from manufacturer to manufacturer, but here's a system that can get you what you need. Run the barrel adjuster all the way in. From fully engaged, come out about 4 or 5 turns. Make sure the cable clamp bolt is all the way up. We're going to loosen this now. It takes 2 hex wrenches. The larger wrench controls the body. The grub screw inside takes the smaller hex key. Loosen, and we're going to bring that down till contact. Pulling on the cable, we have contact. While holding the cable, push the dropper lever. Here, we're going to snug the grub screw. Now release the lever and the cable clamp will rise up. You can see we have some sticking out the top. We're shorter here. But remember, we can also fine tune with the barrel adjuster. Now, let's finish tightening this up. Small hex key inside. I use the larger hex key to control the body. Snug that up. This excess has got to be trimmed. It's not going to fit inside the dropper, underneath the dropper if we leave that. We need that cut very, very flush. A good pair of diagonal cutters is the way to go. A traditional cable cutter is going to leave more than we need. We need it very, very flush. All these little wires here, they can be dangerous, not just to us. If you're working in a shop and with your friends, those are all little pieces waiting to find a tire and ruin somebody's day. The harness for the actuator has one open side. We need to feed the cable clamp bolt into the harness. Use the larger hex wrench to engage and control the cable clamp bolt. Feed it into the harness, between the harness, pull back and engage, housing stop into the dropper. Now we push and pull, and again, time it the same as you bring it into the bike. Secure the post to the proper torque. Return the housing back to a normal position. A lot less deadband. That works great. Attach the lever. We've taken the slack out. Dropper's back to normal.
The most common reason that an electronically actuated dropper post won't drop is fairly simple. The battery's either not charged or it's potentially dead. Most remotes will use a coin cell battery that will need to be replaced. There is also a battery on the post. Often these batteries are removable so that you can then charge it, but sometimes there's a battery built into the post and you'll need to plug the post in. It is also possible there may be a bad contact between the battery and pins on the dropper. These pins are called pogo pins, and in some cases, a small drop of oil and then a little bit of exercise can help bring that contact back. If after doing that, the contact is still not there, you may need to replace them. Contact the manufacturer for parts and a replacement process. Our next issue is that your post goes down normally, but when you push the remote to get the post to go back up, it either goes slowly or partially, or maybe not at all. There are a few potential causes for this. It may be just a case of your post having lost air, so the pressure is too low to push the post back up to the top. Start by pumping this back up to manufacturer specified pressure. The valve is often located under the seat. If you can't find a valve, your post may not have self-serviceable pressure. So, contact your manufacturer to see what they recommend. But often, just inflating the post will solve your problem. If you suspect a leak, test with soapy water and look for bubbles. It is often the valve cord leaking. Use the Park Tool VC1 with a Schrader valve core tool to tighten it. If that does not solve the issue, replace the valve core. If your post continues to leak, contact your manufacturer.
It can occur that you go to hit the remote lever and that's all you get. It can occur that the seat post collar can be too tight. To test this, let's go ahead and loosen up the collar bolts fully. Then we're going to go back up and test the lever again. Yep, that was too tight. You were literally squeezing the internal workings too much. A little bit of deformity. Now it's loose, it's working good. Retighten, but this time, manufacturer's torque spec. That's what we're going to shoot for. After tightening, test again. Drop the post, comes up, that's great. However, at the manufacturer's torque, if the whole post twists in the frame, that's a problem. You're going to have to remove the post and apply some SAC2 assembly compound to increase friction between the frame and the lower seat post.
Dropper seat posts have a stanchion. It's very similar to a suspension fork or a rear shock. Over time, dust and grime can get inside the seals and the inner workings of the dropper, and it can make the rebound of the post slow or sluggish. A little bit of lubricant can go a long way in helping it perform better. Start by dropping the post down about 1 inch or 25 millimeters. Dropper seat posts typically have a threaded collar between the stanchion and the lower post. Grab this collar and unthread it. Sometimes these can feel tight, but do not use pliers to loosen. A strap wrench can help here, or even a rubber jar opener can make a difference. Slide the collar upward a bit. Use a lightweight oil such as a mineral-based brake fluid or a light viscosity shock fluid. Drip a little mineral oil around the bushing along the stanchion. Reinstall and hand tighten the collar. Work the fluid in by moving the post up and down. If your dropper model does not have a threaded collar, simply dribble some lubricant above the seal and work it in. A zip tie can help here. Wipe off any excess on the stanchion when done. Dropper seat posts can also have issues internally. Sometimes they can make some scratching or grinding noises when being actuated, or sometimes they can have like a soft top to them. In a lot of those cases, they need to have an internal cartridge replaced. To replace that cartridge, if you believe you need to, please contact your manufacturer for the service instructions.
When it's cold, this cold, that can make things not want to move. Your dropper can be affected with the seals in the really, really frigid cold. Things just don't want to give. So sometimes the dropper just doesn't seem to want to go. The cold accentuates other problems like a low pressure or a lot of friction. Besides checking all those usual suspects, there's not a lot you can do until it warms up.
If your electronically actuated dropper is not working, first thing to check is that there is battery. So pop in a fresh battery or recharge your other battery, boom, might start working. Also, check that the firmware is updated. I know. But beyond that, electronically actuated droppers are susceptible to many of the same issues as a mechanically actuated dropper post. So go through those same processes. Another issue that sometimes comes up when you're running a dropper is that you push the saddle down, you let go of the lever, and the post pops right back up. This can sometimes be too tight of a cable that causes the actuator to always be pushed. This can be a fairly easy solution by turning your barrel adjuster back in, which will allow a little bit more slack into the system. And then you Go and test it, and it's working. Push it again, pops back up, functioning well. Simple solution. But in some cases, it can be a little bit more difficult. Take a look. It may be that the housing was not fed properly while making an adjustment to your bike's saddle height, and the housing is getting hung up internally. The post's actuator is now actuated all the time. This hang-up often happens at the bottom of the post, but can happen at the bars as well. If you run into this issue, you're going to have to remove the post. Not everybody has a nice cutaway. If the cable end at the bottom of the dropper was not properly trimmed, it can also cause issues with the dropper post. Here the end of the cable is too long. It is not allowing the actuator to close. To fix this issue, we need to cut off the excess. Cable cutters are preferred to cut cables, but here it must be trimmed very short. So we will use a pair of diagonal cutters like the Park Tool SP7. Now the cable end will not interfere with the actuator. Those are some possible problems and some possible solutions to your dropper post issues.
As always, it's going to be cases that you're going to have to figure out how it works, then apply an effective solution.
If you've had dropper issues in the past, please tell us about those in the comments below.
Then hit that subscribe button.
And drop us a like. And we'll see you next time on the Park Tool YouTube channel.